Good morning. This is going to be day 2 of AMI. I wanted to start out by wishing you well. I know that as things progress and things change, that it's starting to become a little bit overwhelming. And just remember what happened this past summer with the flooding. Our community always comes together, and our community is always going to help each other in times of need. We proved it with the floods. We're going to prove it with coronavirus. You are not alone. Um, I love you. Your other teachers love you. Your parents love you. And the people that are in charge, Mayor Witt and the superintendent and Dr. Burris, are all going to do what's in your best interest. So just make sure that over the coming days that you're taking care of yourself, that you stay hydrated, that you're getting enough to sleep, and that you're keeping some sort of schedule. I know that it's hard. I have all 5 of my kids at home right now, and it's a little bit difficult keeping a normal schedule. But it's very, very important for you mentally that you do that, okay? So today we are going to do day 2 of the AMI. Day 2. And it's fairly short. If you notice, it's just one page. And if you actually have been paying attention, it's going to be at the end of the notes. And so I figured that you would probably not need a ton of work on day 2 if it were to come to that, just because, I anticipated some of this was going to happen. But today I'm going to go a little bit slower. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in depth and make sure that you have all the answers. And then tomorrow we'll go over the review. Tomorrow's AMI is a little bit confusing because it has some page numbers. Don't worry about those. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay, so at the top of the worksheet, it says, this means that a communicator follows the morals and codes of conduct within a society. It is how a person behaves and how they treat others. And of course, this is ethical. This is the ethics. We talked about this early in the year, but it's really, really important that we refresh ourselves on ethics as we see people that are doing unethical things. And so when you see people that are going into the stores like Sam's Club and stabbing people over water bottles, or you see people that are walking into Walmart and buying massive amounts of toilet paper, those things are not ethical. Things are they're not following the codes of conduct within our society. And so when we're talking about in terms of communication, we're talking about, are you saying the words, are you communicating in a way that falls within the moral boundaries of our society? And in order to do that, you have to do a couple of different things. So number one is, if you're ethical, then you're going to be honest and you're going to be truthful. And that's what I always try to be with you guys. I don't sugarcoat things, and that's why, because I want to make sure that you know that I'm always on the level with you. And that's really what an ethical communicator is going to do. They're going to be honest. They're not going to be they're not going to lie. They're not going to be untruthful. They're not going to try to hide behind statistics or figures or anything like that. They're going to be upfront with you. And so that's something that we really need to see. And I think that's something that we're actually seeing across the board in terms of the political spectrum right now, is that all of a sudden both sides are being honest and truthful, and it's refreshing. It's sad that it takes something so drastic to make it happen, but I really, really enjoy the fact that I'm seeing people, and it doesn't matter who they are, being truthful. Next is, they keep confidences and are cautious about spreading gossip. And so this is one of the things that we talked about in class, was the fact that if you're unethical and someone divulges information to you, or they tell you a secret, or they tell you something that they're thinking, or their thoughts or their feelings, and then you turn around and you spread that around, that would be unethical. That would be that wouldn't follow the codes of conduct. Most people would not think that that's the right thing to do. And so, if you are going to be an ethical communicator, you're going to keep those competences. You're going to make sure that you are someone who's trustworthy and someone who will not turn around and just spread information around. Right. Next, they also consider the needs, the rights, and the feelings of other people. And I think that you can tell this just by looking at the examples that I use in class. I always try to consider the feelings of all different types of people, because in my classroom, you will have a wide variance of people. You're going to have people who are more well off. You're going to have people who are in middle class. You're going to have people who are poor. You're going to have people who are atheists. You're going to have people who are Muslims. You're going to have people who are Buddhist. You're going to have people who are Christian. And you're going to have people who are Democrats and Republicans. And all of these people deserve to be respected. All of these people deserve to have their point of view listened to, their needs met. And so just like I try to do that in my class with all my examples, you should be trying to do that. Now, again, just like I said in class, this does not mean that you are going to have to accept what they say. This does not mean you have to believe what they say. In fact, you probably don't want to believe a whole lot of what people are saying, just because the majority of people talk without really understanding what they're discussing. And so, just because you consider a person's needs or you consider their feelings does not mean that you have to give validation to those things. And so, those are two different things. You want to give them consideration. You can even give them respect for having the choice to feel those things or to think those things, but you don't have to say that it's right. You don't have to say that you believe it also. And so I think a big problem is that when we start talking about ethical or unethical, some people would say, well, if you don't believe exactly like everyone else believes, then you're unethical. That is not going to be true. All right, next, responsible. This means that they take responsibility for their own communication choices and behavior. Okay? We discussed this in class. The people who do not, they might say something in class and then they blame the person next to them. Well, they were poking me, or they were trying to take my things. People should take responsibility for their own communication choices, because we know that whenever we make when we say something, it's basically making an action, and actions usually have reactions. And so your communication choices will often have reactions to them. Underneath that, in order to be responsible, you need to be informed. That means you're able to support what they say with facts and examples that are true. So depending on how long this goes, we're probably going to get back into the debate side of things. And that means that you're going to have to write your case, which we'll get to. But you'll have to support what you say with facts, with examples. And Mark Twain has a saying about statistics. There's lies, dang lies, and statistics. And what that means is that, some facts can be warped to meet your needs. And that's not really what a responsible communicator is going to do. A responsible communicator is going to use true facts, which is crazy to say, but in the age of fake news, that's something that we got to talk about. All right, next, logical, with developed reasoning skills and the ability to draw conclusions and reach decisions. Logical. So again, it's going to be talking about laying out your reasons in a way that makes coherent sense, in a way that is logically constructed. And so the things that we talked about was, number one, you would make a claim. The claim is you're saying something's true. The second part of that would be, in the logical sequence, would be providing evidence, which should come from a source that is going to be unbiased, a source that's going to not have a dog in the fight and is just laying out evidence. Then you'll have a warrant where you explain how the evidence supports the claim that you're making. And those should tie together to make a logical, responsible communication choice. Next, accountable. So if you take responsibility for the information, decisions, and actions, that's something that we've already talked about with responsibility. But that involves whenever you're giving a speech, whenever you're doing a debate, that you are accountable for the information that you provide. And so, should the reader of your paper in AP English, or the counter debater in class, or the teacher ask a question about information that you use in your speech, it's important that you be able to talk about why that information is valid, why it should be considered. And ultimately, it's you who is responsible, you who is accountable for using that information. And so it's very, very important that you pay attention to the information that you're using to make sure that you're only sharing correct information. Finally, a responsible communicator is reliable. They can be trusted to keep their word, even if a decision may not benefit them. I think that's self-explanatory. We don't really have to go in depth into it. But if you want to be a reliable person, then that's what you're going to do. You're going to keep your word, and you're going to make sure that even if it ends up hurting you, even if it ends up even just being an inconvenience to you, that you're going to keep your word. And then finally, a responsible communicator is accessible. So they tend to value relationships, positive relationships with peers, supervisors, and clients. They're open and approachable. They're seen as caring, likable, pleasant to be around. Now, that's not always the easiest thing to do if you are not a extrovert. If you're not a person who likes to be around other types of people, that can be a little bit more difficult. But I think that it's going to be the best advice to have, is that you want to make sure that you are going to be accessible. All right, and then the final thing that I want to talk about is, as I stated before, and I asked you to take a picture of the information on my board, I'm really, really worried about the fact that some of you might not have food. And so there's some information that I want to share, okay? So there are free meals for kids in Dardanelle. This is going to be Monday through Friday, and it's from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., and in order to maintain social distancing, meals will be boxed and bagged and distributed drive-through style. And this is available for all children ages 1 through 18. We also have the Boys and Girls Club is providing bagged dinners from 11:30 to 12:30 at Dardanelle High School. So you have the option of getting breakfast grab and go is available from 7:30 to 8:30 at the high school. Lunch grab and go is available at the high school from 11:30 to 12:30, and then you have those dinners that are being distributed by the Boys and Girls Club. In addition, there is the River Valley Food for Kids that will be at Dardanelle High School Wednesday, March 18th, which is going to be tomorrow, from 11:30 to 12:30. And so they are giving backpacks and they're giving pantry items. And so if you've been paying attention to the news, we're not really sure how long this is going to last. And so if you open up the pantry and you don't really see a whole lot of food, then it might be in your best interest to try to get to this handout and get some food. There's nothing wrong. Do not suffer in silence. There's absolutely zero wrong with making sure that you're fed, that your siblings are fed, that your parents are fed, because we're all into this together, guys. And again, if you need anything, do not hesitate to message me on Remind 101. Do not hesitate to email me. And if you can't get there, I'm going to try to get you what you need, okay? So please, just let me know. I think that's it. I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully you're also enjoying your AMI. All right, bye guys.